So, very good evening to everyone, and a warm welcome to the panel discussion on Womenomics today, which is organized by the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, GCPIT, in association with the Confederation of Indian Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, CIMSME. My name is Mishma Stanislaus, the Chief Global Communication Officer at CIMSME and GCPIT, and I take pleasure in moderating the panel discussions today. And on behalf of GCPIT, I extend a warm welcome to our panelists, Dr. Poonam Malik, Ms. Jane Morrison Ross, Dr. Lopamudra Das Roy, and Ms. Nabamita Mazumdar, who will be joining us shortly. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we dive into our sessions, I would like to give a brief introduction about our organizations, because I'm sure we have people joining in for the first time. So Confederation of the Indian Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, CIMSME, the Global Council for Cluster Excellence and Research, GCCER, the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, GCPIT, and the International Council for Technology, Management, and Applied Engineering, ICT, MAE, are a group of not-for-profit organizations. And we are the fastest growing entrepreneurial support network in the country, and with currently a national business network of entrepreneurs of more than 9,324. And CIMSME is the go-to organization for micro, small, medium enterprises, and also for startups, womenpreneurs, solopreneurs, studentpreneurs, and so on. And we help businesses to nurture their businesses and to take forward in their communities. And GCPIT is a Section 8 company based out of India. And the goal of GCPIT is to implement relevant major national development strategies and promote foreign trade, bilateral investment, and economic and technological cooperation, and to carry forward cooperation with overseas trade promotion counterparts, receive overseas high-end trade and economic delegations. And as part of our mission and vision to empower SMEs and womenpreneurs in particular through knowledge sessions and in order to help them establish linkages both locally and globally, we have initiated this global movement on Womenomics. So, of course, we have our experts who will talk in detail on Womenomics, but just to lay the groundwork, Womenomics is a term that came into light in 1999 when the then Prime Minister of Japan adopted it as a policy based on the idea that Japan can boost its economy by getting more women into the workforce and reward them with the jobs and salaries that match their skills, talents, and ambitions. So this movement, which started in Japan, which quickly radiated all over the globe, and many countries currently aim at increasing the proportion of women at the board or managerial level up to 30% by 2020. So today, with the movement for women's equality in the workplace in full swing, GCPIT brings together a panel of experts to examine how much we have progressed, how much we have achieved, and how far are we behind achieving our targets. So in this first panel discussion, our panelists will throw light on the background, the opportunities and challenges pertaining to Womenomics. So with that, I would like to give an introduction to our first panelist, Dr. Lopamudra Das Roy. So Dr. Lopa is a distinguished cancer scientist and research professor who resigned from her career to create a Grow Breast Cancer Hub as pro bono and a voluntary service with a dream to save lives by making impactful changes working at the grassroots level. She has over 20 years of experience in research, teaching, and mentoring undergraduate and PhD candidates in the field of genetics and breast and pancreatic cancer. Can I request the other speakers to mute your audio in the meantime? Thank you. So Dr. Lopo also received a PhD in molecular biology from India and a postdoctoral fellowship from Mayo Clinic College of Medicine in USA, and in cancer immunology and therapeutics, focusing on breast and pancreatic cancer. And she also completed her MBA from Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management, Chicago. Dr. Das Roy has received an Award of Excellence for Humanitarian Service from the Male Breast Cancer Coalition in the US as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Lopa. And let us break this monologue, and you can start by sharing with us your opinion and thoughts with respect to Womenomics. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mishma, for the generous introduction. And thank you, thank you, Mr. Santosh. Then I should also thank Aparna, Miss Aparna, and Mr. Sushil, for giving me this opportunity here, for introducing me to, Womenomics, I would say, and it's amazing work. Hats off, and thanks for the great initiative. So, as Dr. Mishma has already given a little bit of the introduction about the Womenomics, and we all are familiar with the term, with the empowering women with access to equal socio-economic participation, which will spur both the economic benefits and social progress. So, as we know that when more women work, it leads to economic growth, to a sustainable development, basically by bridging the gender gap and disparity, maximizing the human capital potential, and also by maximizing the active participation of women, which is going to help. Now, we all know that from the perspectives of the government policies, workplace framework needs to be also more favorable for women. But one variable which I always feel will determine a huge shift is tapping into the culture of the society with Womenomics, where we are still immersed within the mindset that that men need to take the upper hand when it comes to driving the income in the family. And the woman's salary is an additional factor and not the primary source. Many times, these perceptions make women take a backseat whenever any familial circumstances arise, even if the woman is more educated than her counterpart. So, that's why I always feel that, with respect to Womenomics, if we could also tap into the social stigma, that would be a big change from the impactful change that will be created. But I also must definitely say and acknowledge that because of this kind of movement, the share of women in the labor force has increased. And I'm so proud of all the women taking their stand and stepping up, as I understand that it's not easy. And so I would say Womenomics is a movement not only towards the economic growth through through women workforce participation, but it's actually a movement towards the progression of the mindset by breaking the culture-induced social stigma. That would be my take towards Womenomics.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was a great start to the session. So we'll get back to you with more questions on that, Dr. Lopa. And meanwhile, welcome, Ms. Nabomita. Thank you for joining us.
Womenomics team for making me a part of such a stellar. Now, Mandeep ji, I completely agree. Looking at the co-speak panelists, I'm in awe. Right? This is an amazing panel that they have organized. Thank you, team, for inviting me. My views on Womenomics. Okay, we read it in the newspaper, right? Not just now, way back in 2018-19, that 2.9 trillion economy, 2.9 trillion on economy would be affected if 60% of Indian women can join into the workforce, right? Data. Now, if we look into the data, let's just take 1 second and realize why it is such a big hurdle, why it is such a big obstacle, right? We want our economy to be to 3 trillion, right? We definitely want it, and the time limit set to it is to 2025, which is just 5 years away from now. And what is the exact obstacle to it? First and foremost, women aggressively work in one sector, and that is agriculture, right? Highest level of women work participation in work is in agriculture, and the problem is that do not add on to the GDP because the marginal income is too low. If you look at women entrepreneurs, most of them prefer being micro entrepreneurs. It is extremely important to create all those employment opportunities for others, to create all those entrepreneurship opportunities for others. But here lies the problem. When larger numbers remain only a fractional part of the total economy, even if we push the numbers up, even if from 60% we move to 80%, do we still make the 3 trillion mark by 2025? Question 1. So why exactly is this happening? Why are women preferring to join the agricultural sector? Point. Women are part of the families, that are into agriculture. As a culture, as a tradition, everybody in the family goes to work. It's a wonderful practice. However, the income distribution doesn't happen on the heads of the women. This is where the infrastructural change requires to be made, right? In a family of 7, if men are working and there are equal number of women are working or less number of women are working, that total income of that household has to be equally divided to make that participation of women in agriculture count. First thing. Second thing is, yes, we would love to have more and more women in well-paying job, in greater, extremely well. I mean, all those cushy jobs we want women in. Goldman Sachs says 150 to 200 years it will take us to reach the equal pay limit. 150 to 200. Right? And here we have a data that by 2025 to become 3 trillion, we need 60% of the women. Do we see the gap? Even if we are getting women on higher, on cushy jobs, on great roles, we need to ensure equal pay. Lopamudra ji made an amazing comment that in a household, if a woman is working, her salary or her income is considered to be a additional income on the household, right? However, the entire culture of buying homes by young couples had created it created many bad impacts on the entire credit system, I can understand, but also created one structural change, brought in one structural change for women is the woman became equal applicant for the home loan. Here, this is I think one of the landmark changes that has happened to the cultural and the behavioral change, because when the woman is paying the EMI partly, her entire outlook towards the entire baggage of economy in the household gets differently viewed. Next thing, the retirement fund, right? How many working women actually consider a retirement fund, actually keep a retirement fund for themselves? Women do not. Women spend on children, women spend on household, women spend on home. Women do not save a retirement fund for themselves. If we do not have these criteria met, the 2025 landmarks that is shining brightly on us, the 3 trillion economy, will definitely be a very steep road ahead. Right? So yes, when we are talking about womenomics, we have to look at the top of the pyramid, and then we have to dive down to find the bottom of the pyramid too. We have to make sure that the marginalization of the entire earning of the woman is labeled, right? There is a level playing field for that. Second thing, obviously equal pay, we do not know how long will it take, but then the kind of financial burdens, all thanks to the home buying or family building, whatever that has stepped in, that actually implements a positive impact, a retirement fund, some kind of a financial support. Another example, most of the women entrepreneurs, right, who start their own products, how do they start? Where does this seed fund comes from? They do not, take my words, they do not have any property in their name. Most of the female entrepreneurs do not have, because the parental property do not come to them, and the spouse property is on a shared name. That doesn't give them the seed fund. The women entrepreneurs pawn their wedding jewelries, pawn their gold jewelries to start their company. This is one of the structural flaw which has to be removed. Women entrepreneurs needs to stop doing that. I know, easier said than that. However, looking for funds, looking for funds based on revenue impact, looking for funds based on the product impact, market opportunities is what women entrepreneurs needs to look at in order to bring in that impact on 3 trillion by 2025. These are few structural points that I would want to make. As we go along, I can discuss more. Over to you, Mishma.
Thank you, Nabamita ji, for laying the groundwork on the economic and business rationale with regards to Womenomics. So that was Ms. Nabamita Mazumdar, ladies and gentlemen, our very own national chairperson of CIMSME. And Ms. Nabamita is also, she of course needs no introduction, but for those joining us for the first time, she is the founder of nabamita.com and is the President's Awardee, recipient of 100 Women Achievers Award from the Ministry of Women and Child Development. And she was facilitated during the Rajmata Vijayaraje Scindia's birth centenary celebrations in Delhi. And she also comes with a lot of other awards as a top 10 inspiring Indian entrepreneurs by Asia Tech Podcast, top 10 thought leaders on future of work by Blue Jeans Network and Silicon Republic, the best 100 young speaker award from Cambridge English in Asia 2011, and top 25 influential women on Twitter, and top 16 entrepreneurs in India by Women of Jaipur, top HR influencer by SHRM India, top 100 tech influencers, top 15 thought leaders on future of work by Silicon India magazine, and many more. So yes, thank you so much for being with us, Ms. Nabamita ji. Thank you. And with that, I move to the introduction of our next panelist. So we have Ms. Jane Morrison Ross with us. She is the CEO of Scotland IS, which is an industry body and cluster management organization for the digital and technology industries in Scotland. And Ms. Jane is a highly experienced technology industry executive with a former digital strategy and transformation specialist with more than 17 years of experience working across the public and private sector. She is a focused, energetic, and innovative CEO who leads by example. And Ms. Jane is passionate about Scotland's opportunity to become a truly digital democracy by building a transformational infrastructure through collaborative working. And Ms. Jane holds board and advisory positions with the UK Technology Cluster Group, One Digital, and Digital Skills Group Scotland, and Engineering Skills Group Scotland, and is also the chair of a Scottish charity. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Jane. And I would like to ask a similar question on what is your opinion and thoughts with respect to Womenomics?
Thank you, and thank you very much, Dr. Mishma, for inviting me today. I am in awe of the other panelists. They are the most incredible group of women I've had the pleasure of sharing a platform with. So thank you very much. I think the other panelists have spoken very well about this. I think I would add that the importance of having women involved at board level and at all levels in companies has been proved and researched now. There are lots of statistics out there to show that companies with women involved at all of those levels, and particularly board, do better. They have more, they are more flexible, they do better in change management situations, they are better at communications, but also in terms of bottom line and profitability, they are significantly more profitable than companies that don't have women involved at all. I think the other panelists have spoken about some of the barriers to that. I think here in Scotland, we are making progress. We're not there yet. In the technology industry in Scotland, 27% of the workforce are women, which isn't enough yet, but it's double where we were 10 years ago. So there is significant change happening. And I think that's very important. The women and girls are doing very well at university and in schools, not just in Scotland, but globally. So there are an increasing number of very, very talented women graduates, as you can see on the panel today, who are also entering the workforce. We need to make sure the conditions are right to help keep the women in the workforce and add value not just to the economy and the companies, but to the society that we are all working within. So I think that, for me, are some of the key areas of importance. And I think the other thing I would say is, here in Scotland, we have a number of very senior women in government roles. Our First Minister is a woman, and we have a number of very senior women at board level in some very key organisations. And you're going to hear from one of them next, I believe, which is Dr. Poonam Malik.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jain, for sharing your thoughts. And yes, we are going to hear next from Dr. Poonam Malik. So I would like to give a brief introduction about her. Dr. Poonam is also not a new face to CIMSME. We've had both Ms. Jain and Dr. Poonam in our Global Leadership Dialogue. So Dr. Poonam is an academic entrepreneurial research management leader with extensive experience of working in innovation, enterprise, economic development, and partnership within life sciences, health, and technology, in academia, industry, and business sectors globally. And as a board member of the Scottish Enterprise with a responsibility of over £340 million annual budget, she's also the board member of the Skills Development Scotland with the responsibility for £220 million annual budget, and a non-executive director for First Sport, Scotland's which is Scotland's national startup social enterprise development agency, which engages with over 1,100 startups supported by the Scottish government. Dr. Poonam is a governor and the university court member for University of the Highlands and Islands, highest governing body responsible for a unique partnership with 13 academic further and higher education colleges. Dr. Malik holds a PhD in biomedical sciences from the University of Glasgow, UK, and MBA in strategy and leadership from the University of Edinburgh Business School, UK, and an MSc in biotech from the Animal Sciences from Indian Veterinary Research Institute. Thank you so much, Dr. Poonam, for joining this panel discussion today. And if you could throw some light on the economic and business rationale on Womenomics. Over to you.
Thank you, Mishma, and thank you to GCPIT and CIMSME for inviting us here. And I will join all my other panelists in saying that it is indeed an honor to speak about it, and I'm really happy to be here. But the question here is that why would we not celebrate the achievements of women? After all, nature made us 50-50. And we are still sitting here in 2020 discussing, can we make 50-50? And where is the justice in that? I mean, the basic question is that why should we be considering this? Women have been working at the equal levels from the start of the life or the dawn of the century, whichever way you would like to look at it. But the only difference was that is an household work, which is an unpaid work, which is considered, and it is not part of the economic measures that we see it. There is a new theory developing that should we start to consider household work, and if we were to measure it in the gross domestic product or the GDP terms, then women's contribution overall would outweigh any other contributions, and even in some cases overall the largest or highest producing country's gross domestic product. So the question is that, do we need to justify, are women capable of work? Do they actually add to the economy? No, we don't, because if you are any sane person, you will understand the society is functioning because women are carrying on the major burdens within the household. And since the beginning of time when they have started to work, they are also contributing outside. The challenges come that the way economic measures, we have only started to measure the paid work, which when women have started to go. And as a change in that world, the developing world, obviously women started to go outside more. And I know Lopa was talking about, and Namu said that as well. It's easier to go in the agricultural sector or in the sectors for retail and hospitality. Women tend to be predominantly there because the barrier to entry are low. in sectors where there are barriers to entry are high, or there is a closed circuit of people who have already been holding jobs, which we call big old boys network, that is where the problem comes, is that how do women break barriers into that? So these are the fundamental issues why it has been found difficult. And traditionally, because women, nature made us, that I think we have a gift that we can only produce the next generation and our future generation for this world, which is why sometimes it's a lifestyle decision. If women want to stay at home and be a mother for a certain number of years, they shouldn't be penalizing for it, because eventually we are doing our jobs for the society. So the question is that it is incumbent upon the society, upon the government, and the social structure and the business structures to make our conditions so that whoever wants to do, and there is a change coming, there are partners, there are considerate men who equally want to take paternity and child care responsibilities. There are few, I wouldn't say many have that awakening and want to join in, but certainly, and I'm sure those of us who are lucky to reach a certain position are lucky in, I'm saying the word lucky is not that somebody has gifted anything to us, that we have either made a right choice in choosing a right partner, or they happen to be nice men who are supporting and giving that platform. So from that point of view, there is a societal change need to happen to make those, but there is a large responsibility on corporations and organizations to make those conditions. And if we need to achieve and progress further, then those are the changes that need to happen. I'll stop here and then we'll discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poonam, for that. And I have to agree with some of the comments our participants have been posting. We have a stellar group of ladies who are going to discuss on this panel today. So I have to agree with that, and very talented panel, yes, of course. So without further ado, let's dive into the questions. So the first question I would like to ask Ms. Lopa. The term Womenomics, as we know, was introduced in 1999. So since then, what progress have we made, and how much we have progressed globally?
Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. Yes. So, I'm really in awe of the panelists. So thank you so much, because Dr. Poonam, Ms. Jane, and Ms. Nobonita, they have covered so much already. So when it comes to the progress, right, since 1999, when Kathy Matsu from Golden Shed first published the research on Womenomics, exploring the economic outcomes of women in the workforce, which Japan had one of the lowest female participation rates in the developed world. And in 2019, 20 years later, Japan's female participation rate was 71%, which topped the US and Europe also. But globally, the percentage of women participating in the labor force is declining. So I would just like to touch base very few statistics, like less than half, 47.7%, I would say, of all women participated in the labor force, a decrease from 50.9% in 1990. And nearly 3 in 4 men participated in the labor force, which was like 74.7% and down from 80.2% in 1990. But there are few countries, for example, in Australia, women's labor force participation, its rate actually stood pretty steady and strong at 61.1% in 2019. And in Canada, over half, like 61.3% of women participated in the labor force. So, but in India, there was a decline. There was a fall from, I think, approximately 30% in 1990 to 23.4 approximately percent in 2019. And in the US, 57.1% of women were in the labor force in 2018, compared to 69.1% of all men. So the rate of women's participation, it was actually in the peak in 1999 at 60% in the US. So we can see a trend of declining over here, and which we can attribute to the structural barriers and the cultural restrictions, which can be the two major driving force for this gender gap. Because despite an increase in the women pursuing higher education globally, a gender gap in the employment rate, it remains among highly educated women and men in some countries. And as Dr. Poonam and Ms. Nobonita Ms. Jane have mentioned about the unpaid caregiving responsibilities also, it's always there, which can be prevented because, like this unpaid caregiving responsibilities, unfortunately, is always disproportionately, it falls on the women. So family support policies are crucial for increasing the women's labor force participation rates with regard to the paternity leave and the maternity leave. It is very important. And as Dr. Poonam rightly said, men need to come forward to take responsibility too. So because again, it drives back to the culture. So, but women are also currently underrepresented in high skill subjects like STEM, though globally, so many women, they make up lot of STEM students are everywhere across the globe and even in India also. But when it comes to in the professional fields, in the developmental field, in the science, technology, research field, there's only a handful percentage of women climbing up the ladder. So that is a huge gap, I feel, which is really, really, we need to focus on that. The other aspect is leadership. Despite progress, not in all countries, we will find women as senior leaders. So women account for less than a third of senior roles globally. So, and the other problem that we see is on the board seats. Like, for example, women hold less than 25% of board director seats worldwide, according to the 2019 statistics. The global pay gap between women and men is widening, and there is an informal employment, lower levels of labor force participation, gender pay gaps, interactive careers contribute to women's lack of access to social protections. But so I would say that things are progressing, but it is work in progress. So with significant room to improve the nation's, all the nation's gender leadership and pay gap. And because we know that more people working will add to the economic potential growth. And one thing we should always acknowledge is that to be innovative, to be creative, we need different perspectives and cognitive diversity, which is needed for decision making processes in order to improve the bottom line performance. And I always feel that women can add such great value to the creativity which any organization needs and which will eventually lead to the profit and the revenue generation of the organization and eventually leading to the GDP of the nation. So I would like to end here so that we can move to the rest of the other topics.
Thank you for that, Okay. Like you definitely said, we've made a lot of progress in some of the countries, but there's always room for improvement. So I hope we are all headed that way. So with that, I would like to pose the next question to Dr. Poonam on if you can elaborate more on the biggest challenges that persist in women's economic empowerment or Womenomics as a whole. Yes.
Thank you, Mishma. So I think you asked me about what are the barriers or challenges that exist, and now I would say, where do I start? The reason we are sitting here, and
I'm sorry, Dr. Poonam. Please, may I request the other speakers to mute your audio, so because we have some background noises. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. Please go ahead, Dr. Poonam.
Yeah, thank you, Mishma. The reason we are sitting here and discussing is because there have been a huge amount of number of barriers that exist. I see Roshan's comment here in the chat box is saying we should have invited men to participate. And I totally agree. I was the first person in my introduction to say we cannot do it alone. And decision makers are men, and if you have to change things, they have to come along. But on the other flip side of it, Roshan, there is a terminology we use called menels, that men on panels. And so far, the panels have existed where there have been purely men-only panel. Nobody at that time stood up and said, oh, why is there no women here or 50-50 women there? I'm never saying that we should exclude, because by exclusion, we can never take everybody along. It is in fact by inclusion and bringing along. So I would definitely tell you that next time you organize an event, you invite 50% women on your panels. And if you do invite, I would definitely come along. But the thing is that if you, on the other side, if you are invited to a panel to speak and there are not women, please refuse as well. And similar thing, you do it in your organization for promotions, for speaker opportunities, for awards, anytime. So the thing is that we actually require participation from all sides. And these are the reason I put it in, because that was my first point, structural barriers. Structural barriers have existed in the organizations from the beginning. So for example, take a case of my STEM subjects or health sector. Here, 98% women make up for the workforce. They are the people who nurses, midwives, healthcare workers. But if there is a one man in the organization, he will be the person who will be reaching the position of the director. He would be the one invited to the position of sitting on the board. And I'm not picking up anybody here, but why would that be? And this is a live example. I have seen that from an organization I have worked in. The reason is that person would not have taken maternity leave. They would not have had 2 or 3 children and have be. So when it came to doing the career review, they obviously have a longer service, longer experience, and more progression in those time. Nobody gave them leeway for that time that they were missing from the workforce. So these are the policies that I'm talking about. So besides the structural barriers in the organization, and also because women have other caring responsibilities, whether it's for the household or for children, they tend to return home early. And they are never part of the out-of-office conversation that colleagues tend to enjoy. And I'm not saying that the socializing in the office can only happen after hours. People can look at the breakfast clubs, lunch clubs, even meetings. But these are the structural issues. Maternity leave, flexible working. These are the issues that not many people or many organizations took the leadership in and gave them. COVID has shown us that all of us can work from home. We are sitting here from 4 countries talking. And all of you who are participating, this is a global conference, this is a global panel, people can join us from anywhere. Would we have thought of it if we were all physically working in one space and organizing this event in one city? No. So technology can provide solutions, and there are solutions there, but we need to go and seek out and make them implementable. Thinking of them and then adopting them and implementing them is what I'm talking about, that those are the barriers we need to work. So besides the structural, I would say educational. We are saying that STEM sectors, computing, maths, physics, rocket science, astronomy, women are not there. And why are they not there? It's not that God or nature made us any less intelligent than our male counterparts. It's simply how society perceives. When a girl is born, okay, we might like dolls, but that doesn't mean we don't like cars or computers. Why don't you give us? If my 2 boys are there, one of them want to choose a pink shirt, I wouldn't say don't use it. I wouldn't just ask him to wear a blue shirt, but that's what they tend to. If you go in the shops, you will see a girl's side is totally pink toys and a boy's side is a blue toys. And that's us society projecting our views on our children. And that's how they are developing in future. When girls come to choose side, I'm so fortunate that my parents didn't tell me to choose humanities or subject just because I was a girl. And I did what I liked. But that's what we need to give the freedom and also guide them. And as a result, and it's also, again, structural barrier joined with educational barriers, because when women study more at the school level and university level, but when it comes to the employment, they remain in the low paid jobs and then they fall out. So it's a very much a sharp pyramid where at the top, no women to be seen, whether it's the management or the educational institutes or the boards, as Lopa was pointing out. Societal issues are in there. Okay, women can only produce children, so it's expected, but then men can join in. If it's a joint family situation, society can provide. COVID has shown our humanity. We have started to learn from others, and we have started to care for our neighbors. But otherwise, we are so busy in our own world, our nuclear families, we don't care outside. The regulatory barriers is another barrier in which the state, which is the government, or the agencies or the organizations, we need to push for those change. In the beginning, I think Lopa and Nabamita both mentioned about the board position and the 50-50 initiatives, or the women need to be there. Scotland has introduced this in the public sector, that by 2030, all the boards, public sector board, because that's where the state can actually make implementable actions, that women should be making 50% of our boards. And I am proud to say that we have achieved that already. We are not in 2030, but we have achieved that last year. And the thing is, for private sector organizations, for other smaller organizations and SMEs, it is up to the leadership to think about the policies, how they are creating that next generation. And the last point I would say barrier is cultural and mindset. It is all within our own thinking, what we think we can achieve. Because women have shown that there's no job in the world that we cannot do it if we set our mind to it. So we just need to make it amenable to our future generation and let the girls fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Poonam. That was so rightly put and definitely thought-provoking to a lot of people, and I'm definitely sure the participants as well. So to build on that previous question, and this is a question I'm going to ask all the panelists. So on a personal note, what are the setbacks you faced as a woman when climbing up your career ladder? So we can start from Dr. Poonam itself and then go ahead.
Thank you, Mishma. I would say I have studied sciences, as I pointed out. In the university, I think I'm echoing a lot from some of the other microphones. But,
so I hope all the other speakers are on mute.
Thank you. I suppose in the college, the girls are less when you're studying together with the boys, but it becomes even more sharp as you do to study my PhD. As it is, I was different because I was in a different country. So I was a brown-looking female in a whitely populated majority. But even among them, majority of your colleagues, as I joined the career, it's all mostly men. They tend to be, because I'm living in Scotland now and England, they tend to be all 6 feet and above. So I was a 5 foot nothing, a female among them. You have to speak.
I think there's a bit of a connectivity issue from Dr. Poonam's side. So hopefully she will join us back. Meanwhile, if Ms. Jane, can you take up that question on what are the setbacks you faced as a woman when climbing your career ladder? Yes.
Certainly. I think Dr. Poonam touched on quite a few of them there and in her previous answer. I would agree that maternity leave can be a challenging one. I was fortunate to work for a global consultancy when I went on maternity leave, and actually going was okay, but coming back was very challenging. And I know there were a couple of points in the chat around that. I found that when I came back, it was very difficult to stay at the level, quite difficult to stay at the level I was at, and very difficult to go for promotion because there was a perception that you may not be as dedicated to your job now as before you had children. So I think a lot of us had to work probably twice as hard as we already did to prove that we were, as good and better at our jobs after returning from maternity leave. And I think a lot of us were better because the time spent on maternity leave taught us a lot about focus, about multitasking, about surviving on very little sleep. And when we went back to work, I think we were able to turn all of those things into useful lessons. But that's definitely challenging. Thank you, Dr. Mishma.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ms. Jane. So yes, Dr. Poonam, back to you.
Thank you. Sorry, my connection just dropped out. So yeah, I caught the tail of Jane's conversation about returning from maternity leave. I do have a funny incident where people somehow think that after delivering, we might have delivered our brains out as well of the body, because some people think that you probably are not capable of doing certain tasks after you return. Because one of the male colleagues commented, but you've just returned. I said, yeah, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that I put my brain in a locker along with myself, my child, and deposit it in the nursery. I've still back myself full. So that is a perception. I'm sure some people say it from a goodwill point of view. They want to give you easy time, as Jean was talking on the lack of sleep. But after staying 9 months maternity and whatever maternity leave you've taken, you are wanting to get going. So creating a supportive environment is one thing, but taking away the opportunity or offering, not offering is totally another thing. It's up to the person to say whether they are on par or not. Besides that, the other thing is that sometimes it's initially I was saying about the barriers that exist in terms of access to opportunity, because if it's the lack of information and communication that can happen. If you don't know about an opportunity existing in a workplace, you might never apply. And that's what happens in most cases when people tend to go out together and they seem to offer cushy positions to younger other people who they know better. And these are called water cooler or golf balls conversations in this part of the world. I'm sure in India it might be sorted in the race courses or on the cricket field. So in that case, because women are not there, so that's why the opportunities are developing. It's how do we provide? And those are the opportunities. Certainly, public sector board positions are more transparent. They happen in a totally transparent, accountable way. But if we have to counter the position where we are talking about that private sector organization, women need to make up for boards, which are less than 7% corporate boards women make up. The reason is that leaders sometimes turn back chairs of the board, say, but where are these women? There are plenty if you look out of your usual suspect circle, but people don't. They tend to ask the same people. Mostly, in most cases, they tend to be the same old men that they have worked with, and they know the same old men that they have been working with for last 20, 25 years. So as a result, you're not going to find any new circles. So I would say start looking at the periphery. If you are looking, start looking at a different, unusual circle. And that's how we can get around this routine of that we are not able to find. And the other, I would call, I'm not sure if there are any male colleagues on this call. Obviously, if we women talk among ourselves, we are not going to solve this problem ourselves, which is why I was agreeing to Roshan in the beginning, that men hold all the powerful positions, unfortunately, as of now. So if they don't bring around the second tier of succession of management leadership, women are not going to be reaching there because they haven't been pulled up, and that is called a phenomenon of sponsorship. We certainly need, and we certainly need more women sponsoring other junior women, but at the moment, for women to reach that leadership position, that will happen. Otherwise, we will remain in the same rut and vicious circle. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Poonam. So I would like to direct the same question to Nabomita ma'am. So what are the setbacks you faced? We definitely heard a lot of your achievements and the awards, but I'm sure you also had quite some setbacks as a woman. So what are some of those you faced when climbing your career ladder?
Mishma, I would love to answer this, right? But before that, Chandrakant Patel had put a brilliant question, right? And I really want to take that. We are running out of time. I just want to take that question quickly.
Okay,
which are
sure.
untapped, which are the untapped opportunities to reduce disparity under the current situation from the perspective of Womenomics? My answer to you, Chandrakant. Chandrakant, yes, I will give you practical advice, but before that, let me tell you, when I first heard of Womenomics and during my MBA preparation, best debates that I had on Womenomics was with my mother. And my mom said, the only difference that government needs to make is to ensure there is an economic value to every work delivered. Make it non-gendered, right? Why did she say that? Because as it was mentioned just now, that unpaid work done by women, right? The caregiving work done by women is not a part of GDP. However, this is the amount of comfort which is getting created in that household, which is why the male member is earning whatever he is earning, and his number and his net worth is getting added to the GDP. Here exactly what we need. We need to make every work non-gendered to ensure household work doesn't remain only to women, first thing. Second thing, if it is done by women, it has to add on to her net worth as a part of that economic value. Second thing, removing disparity, we can easily make three segments: the inorganized sectors, the workforce, the current workforce that we are talking about, and the entrepreneurs, right? So first, let me take the current workforce that most of us are already talking about. In the post-COVID world, right? What exactly can we do to remove the disparity? I'll just take a step back and say that in a pre-COVID world, we were talking about increasing the number of women in workforce. We were researching on why the dropouts are happening in the workforce, right? However, the post-COVID, the COVID pandemic situation has done a wonderful thing, and they have created the work as, they have literally made the work non-gendered. Why? Because it could be anybody sitting on the other side of the laptop or sitting on the other side of the phone, right? Even now, it could be anybody talking to you, right? It didn't have to be me. So this non-gendering is actually creating a better level playing field for women. Now the support requires in terms of helping the women step up to that level, right? Take my words, they are. It is not that women are not as competitive as their male peers in the team. However, the preparedness could be a lot lesser because of the opportunities available to her, because of the network that she had created, because of her education, because of many other things. So that kind of skill leveling, if it is done, this is the focus that we need for the current workforce now, along with gender pay parity. Many of the companies are completely they are completely whitewashing the name in the CV, right? So that the person interviewing the other party, since this is already a telecon interview and distance interviews, so they cannot identify whether this is man or a woman. Same has to happen at the point of performance pay reviews. There has to be a whitewash of the genders. It has to be non-gendered right now, because the companies are working essentially focused on the output delivered. If that is so, we have to create this as a step up for the women to at least inch few steps towards gender pay parity. Finally, for the unorganized sector, I already mentioned that if in a household there are X number of women working and Y number of men working, the agricultural output or the revenue created is always listed under the names of the men. That has to be divided. I understand not every woman would deliver the equal amount of responsibility towards the revenue, but there has to be a major impact in that, and that has to have a better sense of a better way of measuring it, right? Unorganized sector will require more. A lot more of initiatives. We had a very successful Mudra loan, through which I have met women in distant parts starting their own ventures, returning the fund, and then helping other women start their own ventures. So yes, these are infrastructure. They are good to hear right now, but the scale that we are in, we need many more like this. Now, finally, the entrepreneurial sector. The entrepreneurial sector, as I mentioned, the entire funding has to be relooked differently. The entire idea of, in a startup, it's a very close-knit world. Even before you actually go to an investor looking for a investment, the investor might have heard too many things about you from the market. So that kind of behaviors need to change to ensure the women-funded startups can actually grow and create even more startups along with them. For example, yes, we have Nykaa looking for a fresh round of investment. We had Plixio, which raised such a brilliant round, again by a woman founder. Yes, there is a male founder as well, but this is the kind of step ahead at the scale we need in terms of startups. So if you're looking at a disparity, this is my very short answer to your pointed question. In a long format, I can eat up more time. We are just left with 3 minutes. I'm sorry, Mishma.
No, that's okay. Yeah, we definitely have a bit of a time constraint, but unfortunately, this is a topic we have to give more time, and we definitely have to discuss it further. So hopefully, we come back for another session. So, but we do have another panel discussion immediately after this, and more on the business strategy side of Womenomics. So before we close the first part of the session, I would like all of you to give a closing remarks on why the emerging world must focus on Womenomics. So we can have a very short closing remark. We can start with Dr. Lopa.
Yes, so I'll be very quick because everything is covered.
Dr. Lopa.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Yes, we can hear you.
So I'll be very quick because I know we are crunch on time. So, I feel that each woman is an inborn leader because it all started at home, right? Selflessly managing the household, paving way to the man of the family to continue earning because she stepped back to be the caregiver of the family. But it's now high time that the potential of each woman, it needs to be translated to the outside world, driving an expanded economic pie, which is leading to the economic benefits, not only for the woman, but for everyone. And most importantly, it is a movement towards the freedom of thoughts with a pulse of equality in our mind and heart, which is the need of the hour. And Womenomics is bringing that impactful change. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here with everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lopa. So I know Ms. Jane has to leave, so you can give a quick closing remark, Ms. Jane. Yes.
Certainly. I think the women that have spoken on the panel today are a wonderful example of exactly why it's so important we have more women like this in the workforce across every industry, unrivaled talent and a different way of looking at things. And I put a note, as Ms. Nabomita was speaking, I put a note in the chat to say that the Pew Research Centre already estimated that closing the gender gap would add $28 trillion to the world GDP by 2025. If we could do what Ms. Nabomita is suggesting and take gender out of roles, I imagine that would be significantly higher. So I think women have an important role to play, not just because of the value they add culturally, socially, and intellectually, but because it will have a huge impact on the world economy, and that's a huge positive impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jane. So yeah, over to Dr. Poonam. Dr. Poonam, you're on mute. Yes.
Thank you, Mishma. So as my two previous panelists say, I would say this is not a moral imperative. This is a business case that we have to make. In the current scenario, when COVID pandemic and climate emergency are like situations are looming large upon the world, we cannot live and leave anyone behind. We have to include everyone. So for the global south and emerging economies where younger generation is over 65% make for the total world, and they are the future generation. So we cannot afford to lose that 50% of women for that will be joining the workforce. And as Jane just pointed out, making that $28 trillion GDP. I'm not saying that GDP is the best way to measure global economy, because there is a health and well-being economy and green economy and various other happiness economies and discussions are coming along. But what we need to do is not leave everyone behind, join that. Otherwise, that World Economic Forum predicted that there is a gender gap. We will need 257 years, and we do not have and we cannot afford. So definitely it's not a moral case, it's a business case, and we need to work together as a society.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poonam. Nabomita ji?
Thank you so much. Whatever we have discussed, right? Honestly, it might sound easier said than done, but it has to be done. And irrespective of how it has to be done, it has to require everyone. I mean, it's a village well. right? Everybody has to take care of it. It is not just women, it is not just men. It is actually a situation which is revenue, which is economy. So it is truly non-gendered right now. So cheers to such a non-gendered world.
Thank you so much, Ms. Navamita. And again, on behalf of CIMSME, I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Poonam Malik, Dr. Lopamudra, Ms. Jane. I think Ms. Jane has left us, but yeah, Ms. Jane and Ms. Navamita for joining us today. It was a great discussion, very engaging and thought-provoking. And to see such exemplary ladies who have made it, to where you all are today, it definitely gives us the hope, the inspiration and the motivation to keep going forward. So thank you so much for joining us. And like Dr. Poonam said, let's leave no one behind and let's together go forward. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor. Thank you.
So participants, please stay with us because we have another panel discussion to build on the topic Womenomics. Oh, just give us a minute when we get the next speakers in the room.
Mishma,
Yes, Poonam.
How do I go off the screen but keep listening in? How does that work?
Okay, I can share you, maybe Santosh sir will share you the audience links, so participants links, so you can participate as an audience. Yeah.
So I just sign off here and then I'll.
Yes, we'll share it in your WhatsApp. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Upasna. How are you?
I'm doing well. Mishima, only thing is, I'll have to jump off exactly at 10:30. I have another conference call. Will that be okay?
Yeah, we'll try to address as many questions before that. That should be okay, Ms. Upasna. Yeah,
thank you so much. I just booked myself really tight.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Perfect.
So, yes, with that, let's move to our next panel session. Ms. Chiara, are you able to, will you be able to turn on your video?
Actually, it should be on. So I'm trying with another device because it should be on. It was working, but now it appears the same message of last time.
Okay.
Let me see. This way.
So I think I'll go with the introductions, and hopefully you can figure it out by then. So our next panel discussion will be on the lines of how Womenomics is beneficial to the economic growth for corporations, industries, and the country as a whole, and not just in achieving a gender parity. So before we begin, I extend a warm welcome to our speakers in this panel discussion. And they will be talking on why Womenomics needs to be part of your business strategy. And for this, I would like to invite our panelists, Ms. Chiara Milani, Ms. Rajashri Rajashekar, Ms. Sumi Gambhir, and Ms. Upasna Sharma. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Mishma.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Ms. Chiara, we can hear you. So yeah, hopefully you can also figure out about the video. So meanwhile, I'll go ahead and give a short introduction on our speakers today. So Ms. Sumi Gambhir is the co-founder and the chief experience officer at Global Linker. And Ms. Sumi stands in for the SME users, ensuring their business growth is made simpler, more profitable, and enjoyable through a simple and yet rich experience. So she has used her formal education in digitally led design and content, along with her experience of working with SMEs and global enterprises in India, ASEAN, and the US to build a deep global perspective in solving SME pain points. In earlier assignments and roles, may I request the other speakers to go on mute for some time? Yeah, thank you. So, in the earlier assignments and roles, Sumi has helped global banks and financial institutions with their digital experiences, including Citibank in Asia and Europe, Jet Airways and ITC Hotels in India, Airtray, Equitable, and E-Trade in the US, amongst others. And earlier, Masumi has also worked in leading publications in India, writing for Hindustan Times, and in the design function with the Hearst group of magazines during her time with the India Today group. And Masumi has also championed many causes, including women entrepreneurs and demystifying and simplifying digital adoption by SMEs. So thank you for joining us today, Masumi. Sumi, you're on mute. No, you're still not audible.
Can't
No,
hear
we
you,
can't
Sumi,
hear
still.
you. Okay. So I'll move ahead with the introduction of Ms. Chiara Milani, who has joined us now. And yes, so Ms. Chiara, we're able to see you now. So Ms. Chiara is a journalist and anchor woman and author for TV programs and events. And she's also an international trainer and speaker who delivered speeches and courses to leaders from over 120 countries, both virtually and in person. She's the first Italian and so far the only European woman elected as a president of JCI in 2013. And she's currently the editor-in-chief of a multimedia magazine with a daily television program in Italy, for which she conducts interviews both in Italian and in English. So she was also called as the TEDx speaker in Amman, Jordan, to spread the idea of individual social responsibility. And she has received several awards both as professional and for her volunteer work, including special recognition in 2003 as Reporter of the Year in Lombardy, the Pope Boniface 17th Peace Award, and the JCI Top Growth Award in 2009 as President of JCI Italy in 2009, and the Plaque of Peace Ambassador received by the mayor of her hometown, and the honorary citizenship of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 2013 as JCI President. So a warm welcome to you, Ms. Chiara. Thank you for joining us.
Namaste.
Namaste. And next, I would like to introduce Ms. Upasana Sharma. She is the CEO and the founder of Investment Quotient Canada, and with her expertise in law and venture capital, and expert also in the Canadian Startup Visa Program, Ms. Upasana has successfully launched several global startup companies in the Canadian market. She is an accomplished Canadian lawyer with an entrepreneurial spirit, and Ms. Upasana helps startups and international business turn their vision of entering Canada into a reality. Ms. Upasana, being an entrepreneur and an angel investor, understands how hard it can be for business owners to move into a new country, start a business, and raise a capital. So she's a tireless believer in delivering world-class service every single day, and she applies the same grit and hustle for her clients' success that made her the Mark Arthur Foundation Scholar and earned her a master's in law degree from the University of Toronto. And blending her acumen for business development with her vast network of leading investors, business consultants, and top-notch lawyers in Canada, Ms. Upasana ensures our clients have the necessary support, mentorship, and knowledge to strategically and successfully break into the Canadian market. So a warm welcome and to today's panel discussion, Ms. Upasana.
Thank you, Mishima, for such a generous introduction. And I am really honored to be part of such accomplished women and talking on a topic which is very close to all the women who are on this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, we are looking forward to a great panel discussion and a great outcome of it. And last but not the least,
do a quick intervention to check if my audio is working now.
It's working. We can hear
yes,
you.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And I would take this opportunity to echo Upasana's thoughts. Thank you so much for having us as a part of this accomplished panel.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much, Ms. Sumi. And last but not the least, we have our very own Ms. Rajashri Rajashekar. And a brief introduction. Of course, she needs no introduction, but still, she started as a human resource officer, HR manager, and country HR manager. She's been an HR head, a global HR business partner, HR head, enterprise management team, and part of a strategic HR lead, diversity head, women council head, project head, business transition, entrepreneur, director for HR consulting, And she's also a content writer and founder of 2 educational institutions. She's also a writer, a blogger, and researcher on gender neutrality since 10 years. And on also she does some research on gender neutral leadership. And she's a trainer in gender neutral leadership and a culture building consultant and youth and women counselor. She's also founder of Poonam Foundation, and the mission is to build a gender neutral society of dignity and harmony. And she's also the board director on a board of 60 years old industrial forum and a supporter for he for she UN women. And we are proud to have her as our national vice chairperson for the WEE vertical of CIMSME, and she's also the executive director of one of the clusters under NISHTA. And she's a woman with potential and limited compassion. So welcome to you as well, Ms. Rajeshri. It's great to have you with us. Ma'am, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Mishma. It's such a great pleasure to, be with everyone. Yeah.
So yes, that's all the introductions. I know it was quite, and there's still a long list of achievements and awards our panelists come here with. But yeah, that's going to take another 15 minutes. So I'll stop here and let's dive into the panel discussion. So I would like to break this monologue by putting the first question to Ms. Upasna. Ms. Upasna, can you share with us why Womenomics is more of a business strategy that countries should initiate rather than just as a gender equality proposal? Yeah, over to you. Ms. Upasna, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mishma. It's a very important question. I think so all these years, all the countries, I'm not sure, it looks like my video has issues. Okay. All these years, all these countries have done a lot of work to try to bring gender equality. But the World Economic Forum just did a research some years ago, and it shows that all the steps in the world which are being taken to get gender equality, it's still going to be 202 years before we can see any lessened gender disparity. So it looks like somewhere something is going wrong and we need to change it. Women economics is a concept which emerged in Japan when they tried to make a lot of efforts to get women to work towards gender equality, but it was not working. Why gender equality should be a part of the economics and it should become important is, first we need to understand what is women economics. It simply means that governments should work towards pushing women to more in the workforce, and once they are in the workforce, they should work towards reducing the pay disparity. Why? Because until and unless women are not economically independent, they are not able to provide for their own food or sustain their family, gender equality would just be a buzzword which will not have an actual impact on anyone's life. Let's take our examples. I remember when I was 16 years old, when my father told me how to drive a car. Before he told me how to drive a car, he told me how to change a flat tire. The reason being that is that even if I was independent to drive from one end of the city to another end of the city, if my car had a flat tire, I would be still looking at a person usually from another gender to come and help me fix the tire. So my independence was still had a level of dependency. Similarly, over the years, when women were not having equal say, the reason being that is they didn't have equal right to property. They didn't have equal right to contribute towards family. They were consistently made dependent. And when they are dependent, calling about gender equality is more of a buzzword than being actually something being done. So why women in economics, which basically entails that women should be made economically independent. They should be capable enough to work in the workforce, which generates income for them, and that too income which is at par with men, is a key to bring gender equality a real meaning. Because when you are at par in the family, you're considered equal because you have the capability and capacity to provide for the family, sustain your family. Then when we see that actual gender equality start shaping up in the community. So that's why it becomes very important for any corporate culture or any country to make women in economics an integral part of it if they're serious about gender equality.
Thank you.
Mishma, would you like me to add more?
Yeah, thank you for the great start with your great answer to this panel discussion. So I would like to request Ms. Rajeshri to add on the same question of why womenomics should be more of a business strategy that countries should adapt. So over to you, Ms. Rajeshri. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mishma. And Upasana, you have really touched a very, very important point. And in addition to that, I would like to just give little bit of background what's there for women now. So few challenges what women face today in the society is a life cycle, is their health cycle, is their career sustainability and life challenges. These are the four factors on which they actually function, and those factors have to be considered while building any of the political or any of the government policies or the departmental policies or organizational policies. Now today if you see, we are talking about women empowerment, women becoming independent, they are finding their own voice, they are finding a lot of things, but parallelly we are also seeing percentage of single women are increasing. Women taking their own decisions to live on their own and becoming single parent is increasing. Percentage of women running the household in India is 4.5%, and globally, if you see, out of 10 parents, 8 are single parents. However, in that, if you look at the and this is the survey done for 89 countries, so 101.3 million households where lone women are supporting, but the poverty ratio for women is less. That means what? That means one side we are talking about empowerment, another side we are talking about lot of reforms, but women are running their own show, taking independent steps. There are no opportunities. There is a gender pay gap. There are a lot of the society is not ready to look at the 4 pillars which I just talked about. And also, if you talk little further, the entire cycle of her life is not considered. So the social reforms are independently talking, and the economic reforms are independently talking. So many countries, if you see the global data, statistical data, there is a vast difference, and that difference will reduce only when these two aspects will talk to each other, and then there is some ground level the ground level work will happen. So that is what I would like to present right now for this question. Thanks, Mishma.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rajeshri. And I would like to ask a similar question to Ms. Kiara and Ms. Sumi, but more towards companies or from an industry's perspective. So to reframe the question, why is womenomics more of a business strategy that companies or industries or corporates should adapt? So we can start with Ms. Chiara.
Yes, thank you. Well, I will quote an Italian university professor who is called Anna Gervasoni, so a woman, who just wrote a very interesting news for our magazine regarding the cost of gender gap. She wrote that beyond any gender claim, it is clear that the enhancement of women's skills and professional profiles can give a great contribution to the development of businesses and professions. Together with her team, she just conducted a survey regarding ESG policies in private equity portfolio companies. And the result is that environmental, social, and good governance policies are increasingly sought after and implemented by operators who want to invest into companies to make them grow and become more international, thus working to create value. In this process, the enhancement of gender diversity has shown economic and income results. And this point became so important that international guidelines were drawn up with the best practices to be adopted into the investment processes. So this is why, in my humble opinion, Womenomics is a successful business strategy, because investing in women is worthwhile also for your wallet. I hope I replied.
Yes, that is very rightly put, Ms. Kiara. Thank you. So over to you, Ms. Sumi.
Yeah, I think extremely valid and great points made by Upasana, Rajshri, and Kiara. And to really build on the last point which Kiara left us with, which is that it is more of a business case to invest in women, and for women participation in leadership and workforce creates strategic advantages for a business. Hence, in my mind, it makes business sense first. Gender parity is critical, but it happens to be incidental. And if we had to really touch at a grassroots level why it makes business sense, companies cater to consumers, and consumers are split equally between men and women. So it's extremely pertinent that women participate in the decision making in terms of what is being catered for by the organization. So that's one point. The second point is that women are often bigger decision makers or influencers on consumption as well. So on the one side, they understand the consumer mindset extremely well. On the other side, they also understand the influencer mindset, because that's the role they play. So extremely critical to have women representation in making key and critical business decisions. And there is enough data out there. Rajshri talked about some reports. Companies with women in workforce and leadership will have a more balanced and perspective skill set. I think that's a given and known to many of us. But I think a lot of great points were made earlier. And my 2 cents to this really was that women have a significant understanding of the consumer mindset, the influencer mindset, and that's the perspective they can bring in the leadership skills, of course, amongst all the other benefits that the other panelists touched upon.
Thank you, Ms. Sumi. That's definitely a new perspective from your end about the consumer behavior, and telling that, 50% of the women are going to be the consumers. So yes, and they definitely should be acknowledged for the same. So with that, I have a question for all the panelists. So we would like to know, what are some of the corporate policies in your respective corporates or organizations where you're currently working or involved in? So what are their policies that support women in the workforce? So we can start with Ms. Upasana. Over to you.
Okay, so I would actually start this question with a very important thing. When I started studying gender equality and feminism. So some of the feminists had a point of view, some had point of view that to bring gender equality, women should be doing what exactly men are, and then we will be equal. If they are driving cars, we should be driving cars. If they are flying jets, we should be flying jets. That's how the gender equality would be. There was another school of thought. They said, yes, we can do whatever men are doing, but then we are trying to compete with them. The real gender equality would emerge is not like women are flying helicopters just like men are flying helicopters. The real gender equality would emerge when they start designing helicopter cockpits, taking into consideration the physical abilities of the women. Not made for everybody who's 6 feet tall, who have bulging muscles coming on, but this is how made is that a woman who's sitting in the cockpit feels, yes, it has been designed taking into consideration my needs. I think so. That's the same philosophy I have tried to follow in my organization. It is not that women have to do what men are doing to become equal, or whatever we are doing. If we can fit that in the scenario that works for women to succeed, that's what are helpful. And a more concrete example is, it's very important that in a work culture, the traditional role of women are not taken away. See, I'm a mother of 2 kids, and that responsibility will always be a responsibility, even if I'm a pioneer investor, or I have launched several startup companies successfully. I have equity in some of the best growing companies. My role as a mother is going to stay. My house responsibility is going to stay. And I'm really proud of it because I can manage both two. And the reason I'm able to manage both two is considering what role women has to play, what all they have to accomplish in a day of work. If you can put policies in place that will help them to juggle both the worlds, that's going to work. To give a simple example, I tell my clients very clearly that I'm not going to have any calls between 3:30 to 5:30. That's the time when the kids will be coming home. I need to ensure that everything is ready for them at home. That's more easy now because when you're in COVID time, you're working from home, you have all the flexibility in the world. But at least I don't work on Sundays. Like, I try not to work on Sundays because that's the family time. So the policies which has helped us to sustain women in the workforce by taking into consideration what their needs are and giving them flexible work hours, as long as the result is being generated, as long as the work is being completed, as long as the clients are happy, it doesn't matter to me when my teammates are doing their work. If they can manage their work-life balance perfectly, that makes them happy employees. There is a higher retention and they perform well. So what I'm trying to say here is the policies in the corporate setup where we realize what the responsibilities of a person are, a balance between them, that makes a difference. And that's what we have tried to adopt here. So we have tried to make the work culture adaptable to needs of the women. I can't design cockpits of helicopter, maybe later if I ever become an engineer, but that's what within our control is, and we have tried to adapt that.
That was very nicely put, Ms. Upasana, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, I hope we have a boss like this, who's considerate of our work-life balance. So yes, moving on, I would like to pose the same question to Ms. Rajeshri. So what are some of the policies? Yes, go ahead, Ms. Rajeshri.
Yes. So first of all, Upasana, that was a very critical point you talked about, looking at the product, from a gender point of view. And one of the organization had approached me. They were about to launch the oxygen cylinder, and they said that it has to be gender equal because women can't carry heavy oxygen cylinders, and it has to be. So can you do a little bit of survey on this and give us the opinion? And this is a valid point. Across the world, organizations are looking at this as a critical aspect, whether whatever services, products you're releasing in the market, are they gender equal? So that's a very, very important point. Being a gender neutral workplace and leadership and mindset coach, there are some of the suggestions, and I happen to work with the best of the organizations, which were very, very supportive for women. And some of the, advices I do is that create a, ecosystem for women to work, wherein they are able to thrive. Second, have a gender-based reward system more towards collaborative work. It's not polarized. Then have a mechanism where it is assessed from the leadership point of view to your card point of view. Rework on employee engagement. Don't do just entertainment. Look at those where there is a lot of communication is happening amongst both genders, and so that what you are achieving end of the day is that higher productivity of these two genders. The women participation increases the higher productivity. That is what World Economic Forum has said. 35% of your productivity will increase by 35%. Japan's GDP has grown by 10%. So that is the result of participation. And what happens is that two different kinds of thought processes, thought leadership, and the actions are on the table. And then it enhances the creativity, innovation, productivity, collaboration, and you have better output. So it has to be synchronized in the DNA of the entire structure that you have. You can't sit out and keep building programs which are not in line with your goal, your policies, your focus. If that is not there, it will be difficult for the organization also to sail through because it's a new wave. Please let us understand. So the adjustment will not happen. So it has to get merged into the DNA of the organization, and policy level the changes have to come.
Very well said, Rajeshri. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Rajeshri. So yes, the same question towards Ms. Kiara on what are some of the corporate policies that support women in the workforce.
Yes. Regarding our company, what I can tell you is that we simply follow the Italian law, which is not as much advanced like in some country in the north of Europe, but for sure is more advanced than other countries in the world, also regarding pregnancy and maternity. Said so, in our company, we have in the entire group, all jobs positions considered, around 40% of the workforce made up of women. But the situation is different, depends on your reality. I will quote again the survey I mentioned before. According to this survey, only 1/7 of the executives in Italy are women, and in a board of directors made up of 6 members, just 1 is a woman. Even more, if we are talking about women who are working, the situation is different, although the law is the same in the country, from one area to another. In the north of Italy, where I live, the average of women who work is 43%, so like in our group. But in the center of Italy, the average is 32%, and in the south of Italy is just 28%, with a huge loss of potential in skills, in terms of skills and professionalism. So sometimes, even if the law is the same, local cultural situation can really make the difference, because it's not just a matter of laws and policies, which anyway are very important. It's also a cultural matter, a matter of mindset that step by step we should change, both in men and women.
I definitely agree with your last point, Ms. Chiara, on the culture and mindset, and that is why I have a question for you, which we will take up later. Before we ask Sumi for her inputs on the question about the corporate policy. So over to you, Ms. Sumi.
Mishma, the benefit of answering after all the experts is that you have the opportunity to, take a bit of a different view. And I'll take again a more practical point, because I think all the expert points have been covered by the panel very well, and they're all, extremely accomplished in their areas. So very happy to hear some of those points. If I were to take the example of our particular organization and how we make it conducive for women to grow, I think the first thing we do is we remove the gender barrier. And I was listening to your earlier panel as well, and there was a great, bit of focus by the other panelists to say, let's not look at the gender barriers. That's something we actually practice. So I think the policy aspects were very well covered, and Rajshri is a real expert at that with her background in HR. Policy has to be practiced as well. So at a practical level, by removing the gender barrier, we started seeing what are the areas that we can work on to help make the work environment more conducive. And as it's been covered in some of the earlier discussions, one of the key areas where the workforce needs support is when they get into family planning or when a child is born into the house. Clearly, for biological reasons, women need more support, more flexibility at that time. But we also started providing the right support to the male members of our team. So we encourage a paternity leave as much as we encourage a maternity leave. So on the maternity side, we institutionalized the 6 months paid leave much before even the government mandated it. We have flexible work hours for working moms, and I am a working mom, so I bring in that perspective as well. I live and breathe it daily, so I want to make sure that my team members have the right support. As I said earlier, a lot of support for fathers alike, because the minute you provide male members the support, the female counterpart has the ability to focus equally on the work professionally, personally as well. So that's one area that I thought I would specifically want to share with the audience today. But I think other than that, a lot of the key areas that help, and clearly in the post-COVID era, it's, flexible timing and everything has become even more accessible for team members, but we continue to do that. So for example, for working moms these days, they need a lot of support in helping their children join online classes these days. So we have flexible work hours for women. Most of our working moms log in much later than the other team members, and that's perfectly fine and acceptable and never questioned. In the pre-COVID area, we ensured we had support in terms of travel requirements and all, especially when women employees were working late or on weekends, making sure we are providing a safe and a conducive environment by making sure that if at all there is a female employee that's working late in the office, we had a policy where it was mandatory for another female colleague to be with another team member in the office. So that's really what we do in our organization.
Yeah, that's really great to know, Ms. Sumi. And so this time around, I'm going to start from you again. So the next question is, we know that technology is a leading factor which contributes to the economic growth. However, we also know that very few women are involved in the science or the technology forefront. So how do you think this problem can be tackled, Ms. Sumi?
So, Mishma, again, I believe that every profession or field has a process of evolution. And if we look at technology or science, in my view, we are really at that cusp in the stage of the evolution. Technology will go through its process of evolution as well. We are getting there. I don't believe we're almost there, but we are getting there. And the way we are getting there is, by doing a few things. Firstly, in any organization or profession, people like to follow successful case studies, right? Until now, there were successful women teachers, school principals, doctors. So parents would encourage their daughters to do the same. So I think that's one thing that needs to be done in technology as well. We need to create a conducive environment for women to prosper, such that we can build many more case studies and inspiration for others to follow. Again, taking the example of our organization, we are a tech company. Global Anchor is a networking platform that's been built on ground up technology in our organization. We are a global organization across 3 countries with 300,000 SMEs on the platform. So it's an organization that's created a tech platform of scale and global in nature and use. And the team that's comprised, the technology team that's worked on this today comprises of 40% of women. But when we went out looking out for this team, it was not like we went and we were looking out for women. We would do the interviews, we would find the right candidates. It just so happened that a suitable candidate was a woman. So again, to my earlier point, I think the gender, layer has to be removed, and we have to look for suitable candidates. And more often than not, we'll find them in women as well. And then we have to do everything to create that conducive environment for those women to grow. So I think it's really a perpetual loop for any field, not just science or technology. It's a perpetual loop where successful women professionals come. They make the field attractive for other women to enroll. That's what leads to higher enrollments, higher success stories. I think the other reason for maybe a bit of a mind block in technology has been because for a very long time, the field of IT has had this negative perception of having long and late working hours. Now, with the work from home scenario, that barrier sort of goes away because people are working from home. There is that flexibility. So I think that's one area that will definitely have a better impact in future. And we should see less women be resistant to joining the IT industry. And I think thirdly, we need to broad base IT and technology and now start including digital in that realm as well, as that itself is an extremely attractive space for more and more professionals to come in, men and female alike.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that with some examples as well. So I have the next question I have for Ms. Upasana. So Ms. Upasana, do you think mentorship or having a role model in the business plays a crucial role for women in the workforce?
Thank you for this question. I think so. It does. It does considerably. Again, wait, hold on. My camera is having an issue. I think so. It does. Think about the time. We are coming from a century old. We have evolved. There was a time when women didn't have right to vote. Remember, women had no say in the government. To the time we have Kamala Harris as the vice president elect for US. And that to a woman of color, and that to a woman whose mom was an immigrant. So we have come a long way. And if you remember what she said in her first take was, I might be the first woman, but I'm not the last one. So what she wanted to imply is that if she can do it, many other people can do it. And I'm sure what she did is going to inspire a lot more women to say, yes, it can be done. So that's where I can take a simile of being a role model. If somebody before you have done it, and the challenges which they faced was pretty similar to challenges you are facing, and if they could make it, you actually get the courage to get up and you can do it. It's very common. Like if you had a working mom in your house, for every girl, the first role model is their mom, right? If you had a working mom in your life, it's very obvious for you to feel, you know what, my mom was working. When I get married, I will start working. Because when you see people who were in similar situations as you are, who had challenges which are very similar to you can take them as an example and a role model and learn from them that if they could figure out how to manage and navigate through the challenges while focusing on what they wanted to get, it's always very important that you can reach to that level. I'll give you an example again. When I started working as a lawyer in a big law firm, and as Sumi put it, that in a field of IT, there is always a concern that women have it's very long hours. Similarly, in North America, or even in India, in part of the world, when you're a lawyer, you have a billable target. Okay, you have to bill certain hours before you're getting paid. So our billable targets on a big law firm are pretty huge. They're around 200 hours a month, which is around 11 to 10 hours of work. And I was like, okay, how am I going to do it? It's going to be impossible. I had a 1.5-year-old little kid at home, and again, my husband being a busy intensive care doctor, somebody had to balance it. And I was like, maybe I wouldn't be able to do it. And when I joined the law firm, the senior partner I started working with had a similar situation when she was young. She had 2 kids. Her husband was equally aggressive litigator as she was, and she managed to survive. So I had first example, if she can do it, I will be able to do. And I made it a point of asking things, how to manage things. She told me when you need help, how to take help, how to manage, when you should be telling people, no, I cannot help. This is where my family takes priority. How you should be focusing and navigating through yourself. You can do it. So I think so having a mentor in your business or at the field of work who have been in a similar situation as you are, and they have accomplished what you want to accomplish, not only gives you a faith in that you can do it, but it also helps you to learn from other people's experiences that how it can be done. You don't have to manage things just from scratch. It's always better to learn from other people's experiences, implement it. More than likely it's going to work. If it worked for them, it's going to work for you. And I also believe the mentorship is important because it also helps you to figure out your I remember that when I was growing up, and again, I'm taking my examples more, I always felt, if I'm a working mom, I won't be spending my time on my kids' school. Why should I be doing that? That's not a women's role. If you have to do those typical things. If I'm a working mom, I wouldn't be taking up dishes in time. If my husband doesn't have time to cook, why should I be cooking? If I'm doing the same work, I'm making the same amount of money, then why should I be doing it? But then you realize that you can still do what you were required to do. And as a traditional roles which women had over the centuries are by no means demeaning. We should be so proud of ourselves that we are multitasking. We are well capable of taking care of the home as well as going out and doing the work, which many other people in other gender might not be able to do as comfortably as we can do. And that thing came when I saw the women who were in my field, who were very, very successful, were still doing it, and they could do it successfully. And I'll take another example. I remember there was a very senior litigator in our law firm, and she's been a very, very successful litigator. Like, if she stood in court to argue, people would actually listen. She was a very successful litigator, and I would not name her. So I asked her one thing. When you have a trial going on, you work around 20-25 hours a day. There is no end. You just work. And I asked her how she does it. She said, my rule is simple, and that's what I followed in my organization. Come what may, she would leave the office at 5. She'll go home, have dinner with the kids, put them at bed, be back at 8 o'clock and work till 5 in the morning. But those 3 hours, she gave up. And that's how I learned you can manage, you learn. So I have had several role models in my life, starting from my mom, who was well able to manage things, Though definitely support of my dad, that's how I learned that while being in the traditional role, which I'm very proud of, you can still accomplish what you have. And these role models over the years have helped me to learn from their experiences to navigate the challenges which I am facing, because women who have come years before us have faced us. The women who are coming after us will face us. And I'm sure there will be many more presidents and vice presidents in the US who will be women, because they'll be learning from Kamala Harris.
Thank you so much. That was so nicely put, and definitely I would agree with you. So a lot of women have this thought process of where, if they have to go ahead with the career, they should restrict the traditional roles. But like you rightly said, we can multitask, and we women are very good at that. So yes, so with that, I move on to the next question to Ms. Rajashri on how can women thrive in a workplace where there is gender imbalance. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Mishma. And predominantly, a lot of organizations have gender imbalance. So first of all, we have to take that as a normal scenario. And from normal scenario, we are trying to build something new. Okay. And when we are trying to build something new, organization has a bigger role. So as I suggest, this is what I suggest to my organizations, that they need to have a separate policies for women employees who enter the organization. They should be shown the clear path. Once the clear path progress is shown to them, they should be aware that this is an equal opportunity employer. Then there should be few policies also told to them which are women friendly, career friendly, and safety, which are you make a separate session dedicated for them. Generally it is done in a lot of orientation programs, but you make a separate session for that, because women will have a lot of questions and they may not ask in a common room or a room full of mixed gender. And this is what has been my experience being a HR professional with 28 years, because they don't ask, they don't showcase, they are not visible. They go, they are go-getters. And end of the day, they feel that, okay, my opportunity is lost. And then you have various, leadership levels. Have fixed percentage. I'm not saying evaluate with bias. Have fixed percentages at least. Then evaluate based on the performance, but keep some percentage so that we are pushing the level on top. Have even women influencers at every level. You need a lot of women influencers at every level, which will keep talking to women and keep talking to the management on top. There is no point having the canteen level discussion and department level motivation. It does not work anywhere. You need women who sit in the critical project meetings and say that, no, this is where percentage of women are less. Somebody was saying on previous panel, somebody was saying that if there are less number of women in a panel, you insist that there should be a more number of women who are sitting there, or you move out. And that is the truth. And that should be there. Now, from women point of view, once you have all these opportunities and, ecosystem available for you, you have to make use of that. And you have to go out and take that opportunity. You can have various circles within the organization where you can go and talk. Sometimes you're not comfortable to talk to your own bosses. The leadership you find is the olden type of leadership. So have this, informal circles where they can talk. And a lot of organizations are doing that. One of my clients has identified 50 women who will, and with proper career path, how they can move them at different levels. So within organization, you can do a lot, and women have to demand. You have to stand on your ground and demand that this is what I want, why I was not taken, and this is how I am. At the most, you will be refused, but say, speak up. You have done showcase. You have done question. We don't question. We keep doing, and we become invisible. Nobody knows what you have done. So these are the, and then if there are dedicated programs for women to build their mindset, and which is not of anti-men or just fight for rights, but how you sail through for your own, objective, focus, and your own growth. I think that is something which will work a lot.
I think everybody is definitely going to agree with that. So yes, speaking up is being quite an issue for women, and also having women in the top positions is another thing we should look at. But building up upon your comment on the mindset, I would like to ask Ms. Chiara the next question on what is the kind of mindset women should nurture if you're looking at a women's economic advancement. Over to you, Ms. Chiara.
Yes, thank you. All your questions for sure are very, very interesting. Now, I believe, frankly speaking, the first thing should avoid setting limits on your own. I personally never felt less than a man, but at the same time, I never felt more than a man, which leads to my second point, which is to avoid to be too much aggressive, because we are all human beings, and if you are too much aggressive, your counterpart tends to defend himself, and so every gain is even more difficult to achieve. At the same time, we must push the idea that is exactly by starting a new social balance that we can build a new economic balance in which our best business and professional talents can really grow regardless of their gender. And this is even more important now when the entire world is facing a recession because of the pandemic. So I believe we should keep this in mind, as well as we should keep in mind that we live in the communication era. This is the reason why I always repeat that if nobody knows, nobody cares. And that's why we must be sure that our voice is heard. And in order to be heard, we must speak with one voice. And we must find a way through social media and mass media and events such as this online event that we are having today. We must be sure that our voice is heard, that our ideas are heard, because today I'm listening to very, very interesting point of view. And I believe that if more person could listen to these ideas, the change can be easier.
Very good, very good.
Thank you, Ms. Chiara. I hope all the women participants who are listening to us, it gives them, to go forward and, have that thing to stand up for themselves, to speak up and, speak truth to power. So I definitely hope for that. And I have a lot of questions for you all, but due to time constraints, and also I need to give equal opportunity to our participants. So we'll take some questions from their end. So the first question I see is from Mr. Chandrakant. So his question is, are there any successful initiatives in the world where Womenomics has been considerably successful and which can be replicated in other parts of the world from the perspective of business strategy and planning across the industries? So I also did have a question on, some of the examples which you can give, on tangible growth success with regards to Womenomics. So yeah, I can just put it out there, and anybody can take up this question.
Sure, if I can just open with a.
Yes,
would like to hear everyone's perspective, but I think if we can take the most recent examples, and I know Upasana talked about the female vice president of America, and equally if we look at women heads of state, if we were to treat them as CEOs of their countries, clearly the recent numbers say that women-run countries did way better than others under the COVID situation, and New Zealand is just one great example of that.
That is very rightly put. Yes, of course, Ms. Jacinda has been quite the talk of the world, across the globe. So if anyone else would like to add on this?
Mishma, if you can repeat the question once, that'll be great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the question, are there any successful initiatives in the world where Womenomics has been considerably successful so that the same can be replicated in other parts of the world?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So Japan was the first country, as I said, was the one which started with women economics. And what they have done is once they started with the process, it's actually led to 67% representation of the women in the workforce. And you can see it's a growing economy at this time. So if you look at the stats presently available, most of the growing economies or advanced economies still have 7% gap in gender participation in the workforce. And we see that this gap considerably increases as we keep looking at economies which are at a lower strung of development, the underdeveloped economies or the economies which are developing. This data clearly indicates that until or unless half of the workforce which are women will not come forth and be there shoulder to shoulder with the other half of the workforce, which is men, the economies and the countries will not be able to progress. And you can take a very simple example of any household. Let's go to the household level. Wherever you have seen that a mom has been working or a mom has simply been educated and has more say in the family affairs, the overall health of the family, the overall culture of the family, the overall participation of the next generation of the women in that family is much better than a family where mom never had a say. So from the micro level of a family where women had more role and participation to a macro level of economics where we can see that the economies where women are participating equal to men, there is a clear example women economics work. And if it works at all these micro to macro level, it can be adapted in other countries and it would be success. It will generate successful results.
I can add to it. There are many organizations. One is known that they have a target from the board member to the down, increase in percentage of women, and that is also linked to their pay. So that is one thing which we are looking at. So inflow of women in the job labor force this is how it is used. Second is that lot of companies, they have a software wherein when resume comes, it is filtered by hiding the gender. So the first filtration is done, E&Y is done it. A lot of companies have done. So the software randomly chooses based on only criteria. No female, male, nothing is checked. So that is the first level of equality they have tried to see. And third point, I see that um, uh, there are incentives which are given to a lot of leaders for increasing number of women leaders within the organization. So Deloitte is the one organization where this is done. So there are organizations. There are many organizations. I don't remember now names exactly, but there are a lot of organizations which are taking little steps. So if you talk about one entire organization has done it, maybe they are in the process of doing it, but many organizations are doing little steps to increase the inflow of women into the labor force, and at every level. You can,
yeah. Well, just to add something, because many interesting things were just said. I can tell you that exactly during this month, which is the month during which we all have in our mind the victims of gender violence. So with our multimedia magazine, we decided to talk about economic violence. And so we also interviewed some examples of women CEOs, exactly because as it was mentioned before, the example is very important. And unfortunately, it seems that the pandemic has made the economic violence worse pretty in economies of every size around the world. And I just interviewed the two outstanding ladies, who are the CEOs of two historical companies companies, traditionally in male sectors, and they were both able to have positive results even this year, which is so tough for the economy, and even to hire people. And among these people, many women, exactly for what it was mentioned before, because the selection process was based on how they performed regardless of their gender, and many women performed better. But of course, I believe COVID-19 could be a turning point also in a positive way, exactly because, as it was already mentioned, we increased the remote working. And I believe that a blended way, which I am personally following also, so half on site, but half also by remote, for what you can do by remote, can really help women, and by helping women can help the entire economy of the world to be rebuilt. Flexibility, for sure, is the key.
Perfect. Mishima, thank you, Kira, for such valuable words. But Mishima, unfortunately, I'll have to jump off at this time. But before I leave, thank you, Sumi. Thank you, Rajshri. Thank you, Mishima and Kira. It was such an enriching experiences, such valuable thoughts, all coming out of you all being such accomplished women who, while doing it, have not only raised yourself, but also raised several other women along with you to the next level. And thank you, Mishima and Rajshri, for inviting me, and Santoshji for inviting me to be the part of this panel. I'm honored, and thank you so much for sharing these thoughts. Each and every thought which I heard or experience I heard has enriched me as a human being too. Unfortunately, I'll have to jump off.
Sure.
But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Upasana, for joining us, and you very well put, you gave a very good summary of the session today. So yes, I understand you have prior commitments. So thank you for joining us, and
sure.
Yes, so we'll also take
Perfect.
leave.
And I'm hoping, yeah,
thank you.
definitely. And I'm hoping that I get to talk to these wonderful women again in the future and share these things. And I hope our audience found that whatever we talked was valuable. And if all of us can take iota of what we learned today, I'm sure we can make difference in our lives and lives of a lot of women who are around us. Thank you so much. Bye,
Definitely.
everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, before we close the session, there's one last question I would like to ask is, what do you think is one strategy or one policy companies should adapt if Womenomics has to come to fruition? So you can give us just, a brief one strategy or one policy you think, apart from the regular maternal benefits or maternity benefits, and equal pay. Apart from these, what you think is one strategy you think companies should adapt?
Create male and female influencers, including male, because not only female, but male influencers are also equally important because of the percentage of their, higher percentage of, and their outlook. So we are talking about, bringing the strength of both. And only women influencers are not enough. We do not have enough influencers on top or at every level. Involve men. They can really create a lot of difference to build this within the organization.
Thank you, Ms. Rajeshri. Okay.
Entirely agree, Rajeshri. And I think also just by acknowledging that women are going to be a part of the leadership and workforce, and bring the organization environment and culture to a point where you don't need to create a difference. In my opinion, that's really the day when we can consider ourselves successful with all the work that all of you are doing, Mishma, you, Santosh, Rajshri, and by organizing such great events and awareness. I think we really have to get this world and organizations to a point where we shouldn't have to create a difference at all. And everything we do is doing to create parity and remove imbalances that have existed and grown over the decades.
Yeah. Thank you, Sumi. Yes, Ms. Kiara.
Yes, I believe nowadays very often we work based on time. So how many hours do you work? Based on this, I pay you. But of course, it's not possible for all jobs. But for some jobs, we should really work more and more in the direction of the results that we achieve. So it doesn't matter where you work, how many hours you work. What it really counts are the results that you are able to achieve. I believe this could really make the difference. Said so, I also believe it's vital to involve men in this kind of discussion, because if we just talk among women, of course, we know the challenges, we know pros and cons. But we need to involve them, because this will create more awareness also among them on how it could be fruitful, helpful, not just for women, but for the entire society. To make these changes. And so I believe this will be the next step.
True.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chiara. And this was a very thought-provoking session and very engaging and definitely inspirational, I'm sure, to all our participants and the women out there. And like our Ms. Anju Bajaj rightly said, one women become the voice of other women. And we've had amazing 8 women today on our panelists. And you all have been the voices for us today. And going forward, I hope more of us, more women are, there, and we reach and achieve the targets so that we can be the voice to the other women as well. So thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Chiara, Ms. Sumi, Ms. Rajeshri, and of course, Ms. Upasna. So thank you so much for being with us in spite of all your busy schedule. Thank you very much
for having us, Mishma, and a big thank you to you for moderating this panel for over 2 hours now. Great job. And thank you, CIMSME, Santoshi, Rajshri, and Chiara. Thanks for being a great co-panelist.
Thank you very much. A great learning from everyone. Thanks.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed being the moderator for these 2 sessions. Thank you so much, and also thanks a lot to the participants who stayed with us even though it's a weekend, and which shows that this is definitely an important matter to discuss and to also to imbibe it in and take it forward. I would like to end this with a short snippet. So, why can't a woman be more like a man? Mused Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady. But with the policies such as Womenomics, I hope the future generations will ask why a man cannot be more like a woman. So with that hope and with that, so we will end the session. Thank you once again, and hope to see you all in the future sessions as well. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye bye. Have a very nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.